Please welcome Pedro. And yeah. Microphone is yours. Yeah.
Yes. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm very glad to be here. It's my first time in Minsk, and I was very fortunate to be, because it's such a beautiful day. And for that reason, thank you for being here watching this talk instead of being outside. I come here with two goals. The first one is to give you a small introduction of what Dual Track Agile is, and to share with you my failures and my learnings within my teams that are trying this approach. Currently, I'm helping a department, engineering department, to become a little bit more effective and efficient in the way we are delivering product at scale. I have been working for almost 15 years in product-led companies. I started as a software developer, then I was a product owner and also product manager for 5 years. And since last year that I'm more keen to help other teams to be successful launching products. My first encounter with Agile was when I managed the first stand-up ever in 2008 in one of my last companies. So it was my first encounter with the daily, and that totally changed my perspective, the way we build products. I'm also one of the co-organizers of the Meetup Agile Connect Lisbon. So it happens every month, so feel free to drop by if you happen to be in Lisbon, of course. And before we get started, what this talk is not about. So what I'm going to show you is not a happy path, a recipe. So it's just the things that failure in my organization with our kind of product, our kind of culture, and our kind of process. And what we learn, the things we learn based on these failures. So I hope that you get inspired with this information and that you can take to your own specific problems. Before we get started, I want to tell a story. The story of the Orange team. The Orange team is formed by Paul, David, and Greg. And some months ago, they start to build a new product. So they start with their best idea. And after a while, after some months where they were succeeding in achieving their sprint goals, so their velocity was steady, they were doing some overnights to attend some performance and security issues, they were able to launch their first part of the product to only 10 customers. At that point, they got their first feedback. The experience was not that good. Actually, although the value, the intent of the product, it seemed right, the customers could not understand what was the value for that, what they could get out of that application. So they went back to the backboard. They did some POCs, they did some experiments, and all this, it took a lot of time because they need to do some refactoring in their application because they were already running under heavy coding. 6 months almost have passed, and someone knocks at the door. The manager asks, why is this taking so long? 6 months have passed, and we still don't have a product. So this is one of the things that happen in many teams. They start with their best idea. In most of the cases, is the only idea that came out from the head of their most senior guy. And they simply have most of their learnings only by building products, which is the slowest and most expensive way to figure out what the customer wants. And they end up by having a misfit product. They end up to have a lot of technical waste that they needed to handle. And the team, of course, was demotivated with all of this. And they lost the trust of their leadership. This is what I call the single track approach. So we are running cycles where we are learning by building. On the other hand, we have what is called the Dual Track Agile. So this was coined by Marty Kagan and Jeff Payton. So they are not the fathers, but some ones that have a lot of experience in doing product, in coaching how to do product. By the way, who knows what Dual Track Agile is? So I have an idea. Okay, two persons. Great, this talk is for you. So the Dual Track Agile, it's an approach in software development that brings product discovery while we are delivering product. And product discovery, by the words of Marty Kagan, says it's a series of experiments that we are doing before we start coding. So instead of investing the resources of your teams, start to building coding, running some assumptions that can be wrong, why not to do some experiments, some cheap and fast experiments to know if you are doing it right. This is the image coming from the credits from Jeff Payton. And as you can see here, you have two kind of tracks, let's say. I particularly like about this image because you see the feedback loops. So on the upper side, which is the product discovery, so that kind of mindset where we are doing fast experiences, we are learning fast. Okay? And once we have, out of 10 ideas, once we discover what is that single idea that is the best one, then it goes to the delivery track. And we continue investing only on that idea and perhaps not on 9 ideas that could be proven wrong 3 months after. So you have the fast learning and validation upside, and the bottom you have is when you actually are building and ship the product to your customers. This seems right? And there are three fundamental questions here. The first is this valuable for our customers? Is our customer willing to buy to have our product? So this is one of the questions, the value. Then it's about the experience. It's not only about to have a great idea. If then the customer, the user, doesn't know how to use the app. So another question, are they able to use this application? And then we have the time to market. Perhaps a good idea, it's only a good idea if we can ship that product in 2 months' time. If we take 1 year, perhaps we already lost the train. So another question that we could do at the start of the project is, are we able to build this on an agreed time to market? So let's go for the first question about the value. Let's imagine a company that they have a new product. It's a web-focused intelligence. So they have an assumption. This is valuable for our customers. They still don't know that, but they have this assumption. So perhaps a fast way to discover if this brings value is to run an experiment. And you can do that, you are still not building the product, and you can run this experiment like you have that button over there, and you say, if we have 1,000 clicks on this button, this will be the success criteria. This will mean that assumption proven to be right. That it's a topic. This means that this web-focused intelligence, we have 1,000 people that perhaps are engaged with the topic. And so we carry on investing more time to think in other perspectives. Usually, what comes next is about the experience and the feasibility, if we are able to build the product. And you can also run very fast and cheap experiences on usability, like to capture a group of people that are, in a room with 10-hour proxy for your customers, if you have the customers, even better, and to try out several mock-ups, and you end with one mock-up in paper. And that will be the one that you are going to build the code on. Instead of trying out, building the code, and then you are tweaking the experience to match the desires of your customer. So it's just another example. There are tons of those. And the feasibility, you can do some proof of concepts. If your team has the right skill set for that application to be become performant for your target audience. Sometimes we have a great experience, and then once you get to 1,000 customers, the application just go down, is not performant, and because of that, you had a great idea, you had a great experience, but then you just missed the point because it was too slow. So at this point, you can also run some experience. Until now, you still don't write any single code offline. Okay? It seems like a happy path. We talk with our customers, we get some data, some insights from our talks or some data pointers. We just do a mock-up, and then we put the mock-up in production. Actually, it's not like that. Most of the time, everything of these 4 steps happens at the same time. Since you first talk with a customer until you put something in production, perhaps you already changed the idea. Perhaps he wants another thing. Perhaps your competitor already did something that will be better than everything that you are thinking to build here. So you need to do continuous discovery. You need always to have a point in time where you are connected with your customers or proxies of your customers to understand in all the life cycle of your product if it is still valuable. And you have several ways to do this. When you are talking about learning, you can have it different speeds and different costs. Perhaps the cheaper way is to talk with someone. But that doesn't bring the highest value, because you are talking with the customer, you are projecting in him an idea that only he is in your head, he can understand that right or not, but you can already have a perception of what is the impact of what you are thinking to build. You can prototype and you can put in production. And by looking at this graph, you can see different speeds and different costs. So actually, you can run several experiments. And as long as you are doing this, you are going to learn, you adapt your understanding of your vision, of your mission, whatever you are stick to, and until a point that your last, or at least one of the last experiments will be in production with your product. But at this point, you already have some degree of confidence that you are close to be successful. So at this point, your chances to misfit your target are low, because you already ran a lot of experiments until this point. Again, it seems that I'm showing you here the heaven of building product. It's not that easy. One of the things that we incur in this dual track approach was everyone wanted to do discovery. So we want to, all the decisions that were made by the team were baked up with data, with some evidence from our customers. And that ended up to have a swarm of data that delay a lot the decision making for the things that we needed to decide in terms of experience, technology, and so on. And because of this reason, because of the decision making was too slow, the development track was on hold. We had a team that took almost 4 months until they write their first line of code. It looks like a mini waterfall. We do a lot of discovery, and then, only then, we start to build code. Okay? It's not like this. And because we are not releasing product, the manager again just came at the door and asked, why is this taking so long? Why are not, shipping nothing? And a lot of finger pointing starts to happen. We passed from dual track to dual team that were just, finger pointing and blaming each other. The reason why they were so delayed is because the discovery is too slow. It's because those guys, the developers, they are not helping us doing discovery. Okay? So what I found out, sometimes everything starts in the name. And if we just stop saying that we are working on dual track, because it seems that you have two lines with a risk. It's like we are breaking the team in two, right? What we actually want, we don't want to do discovery. We want to build product. What we actually want to do is to, while we are building products, we want to incorporate the feedback, the learnings we are having from fast discovery. Okay? So these are the lessons that we learn in these teams. So I hope that they will bring some benefits for you too. This is a very cliché. Start with your customers. Have a good understanding of the problems before jumping into the solutions. I will give you a story here also. We had a feature that was, some months ago, one of our teams that was responsible for one part of our product, they noticed that there was a feature that with a very low adoption. At first, they thought perhaps it's because of the experience, because that screen was developed like 10 years ago, so the look and feel was not the best. So they assumed that the reason why the adoption was low was because of the experience. They did their work, and after a few time, the experience was much better for that screen, for that feature, and the adoption rate was still the same. So they thought they understood what was the problem. They didn't engage much with the customers. They were not feeling their pains. Where was, in fact, the problem? And once they start to engage with the problem, they discovered that the reason number one was not experience, but the shortcut that was on the home page. The customers, the users, could not find that shortcut because it was under a very heavy banner. So once they changed the shortcut, the adoption rate just increased a lot. So this was the first one. Well, actually, sometimes I just do some questions to my teams. And one of them is that, do you really know which are your customers? Do you know their names? Do you know to write their personas? Most of us, it's like a comfort zone. We are very fast trying to find solutions, but not investing time in the problems. If we invest 90% of the time in the problems, then the solution will be very, very easy. Okay? And of course, it starts always with the customer because he's the number one persona. He should be the number one focus that every team should be focused on. The second one, it's an approach that I heard from Mike Burrows in the last Aginex in London, which is the right to left. Doesn't matter if you are running on Scrum, Safe, Less, those 1 to 10 steps that you heard just before. If you start with the end in mind, it will be easier to achieve a certain outcome. So imagine that first you try to understand which are the needs that you want to meet for your customers, which are the intent, as we heard Chris in the morning, which are the intent that you want to give to these customers. And then from that point back, you start to think what is the most suitable process, which are the different gatekeepers that we want to have. Until a point, we start to build the backlog. One of the main advantages when we are starting with the end in mind is all the backlog that the team will be starting to build, all the features and experiments, they already know it will be to lead that outcome and not start by, let's try to run experiments and decide the outcome later. I will try to expand this with Legos. I believe that is much easier. So imagine that you have the outcome for your customer. No, you want to reach the outcome that to build a house that is comfortable for your customer. It has grass, only one bedroom, it's okay, it doesn't need more. So this is the outcome, the value that you want to achieve. And from that point back, you try you try to figure out which are the parts you need to build in order to achieve that outcome. And by doing this, you increase your chances only to build the parts that you need. And you avoid having a swamp of features that are not relevant for your goal. Another thing, MVP, I think most of you already have an idea of what is an MVP, a minimum viable product. I prefer to call it the minimum working wow product. Many times we release something to our customers that the performance is still not there, the experience is not good, we just want to launch something, and we call it, we just label it MVP. So we incur to doing like this. So we have, it's feasible because we launched it in 2 months' time. Well, it has some value because we are building a house, so it doesn't rain inside, right? But doesn't have windows, and there is no wow factor. The customer won't buy this. But also, if we spend not 2 months, but 1 year building a beautiful and huge house, at this point, perhaps he doesn't want a house. He wants a car or a boat. So that sweet spot, that middle term, it's what we call the minimal working wow product. And it's a house, it's usable, okay? It's not that big, but it's pretty. It looks pretty, it's available, and it's feasible. And the reason why the MVP is so important is because it will lead you to take a decision. First, perhaps the customer still wants to have a house, but once we launch the MVP, he doesn't want that kind of house. He wants another style. So we pivot our strategy. So we still have the same goal in mind, but we are pivot the way we are building the house. Or we just launch the MVP, and he says, now I don't want a house, I want a car. You can just stop the experience there. Or he liked so much of the house that you are building that you will just increase the number of your team members, and you will double down the investment, so you will start to build a bigger house. But until this point, you are safe that you are doing the right thing. So this is one of the main advantages of the MVP. And while we are doing discovery and dual track, discovery and delivering product at the same time, it's essential that you try to figure out what is the sweet spot of building something that is working, something that is final to give to your customers. One of the things that we also find out was about the experiments. So we were doing experiments for everything, and the time is very precious because it's very limited. So we have this circle about the building, the measuring, learning, adapting the building, and so on. And all of this takes time. So this is just one experiment. If we do several experiments at the same time, and because we don't have time and resources for everything, what is going to happen is that you are going only to build. You don't have time to get to understand the data, to debrief the data, and to learn out of that data. And again, you are leading to have a pile of Lego parts that perhaps it's valuable, perhaps it's not. But as long as the product lives, means that you are going to deal with this all technical waste. And this can become a problem. About the decisions, this is going to be a very quick one. It's about be smart in collecting data. Many of my teams, they are, okay, we need to be data-driven. We need to collect a lot of data. But then, after 3 months, with the data they collected, they didn't know how to use it. The data was not actionable, was not answering a question, was not like, let's capture all the clicks on this button, and if we surpass the 1,000 clicks, this means a yes. So when they decided to launch this metric, they already know what was what were the actions that they were doing. So every time that you try to collect data, that you invest effort to put the data point there, and then effort to read the data point into the brief and to take some action, try always, start always with the end in mind. If we have this data, what I will do with this? And if you don't get an answer, perhaps that data is not that important. About the pace, again, regardless if you are using Scrum, Kanban, XP, whatever, one of the things that we found out, keeping the pace helps in a lot of things. So if we were doing dual track, so again, a mindset where we are running some experiments, and then we are start to building the product, having a 2 weeks iteration means that you are forced to take a decision every 2 weeks. It means that if you release a product every 2 weeks, you are keeping engaged a customer. That it may start to think what is going to be launched in the next Friday, because he knows that on Fridays you release something. If you are working at scale with 10 teams with some interdependent dependencies, either technical or value, if you're working with this space, means that it can help on the alignments. If you have people doing discovery, doing a lot of interviews for the customers, every 2 weeks, it can debrief the learnings to the rest of the team. So there are a lot of advantages here. I heard one of my team just saying to another one, hey, and while they were doing a retrospective, Antonio, come on, shut up and just grab me another beer. Once we finish an iteration, it's very important, the celebration of the accomplishment. So if we achieve to get that sprint goal to release something on time, let's celebrate. But let's not forget the improvement part. Being high performant is very, very hard. So although the celebration is important, never lose the opportunity to understand how can you become more leaner in your process. How can you reach the same outcomes as a team with less process in an easier way? What I found that worked best is when we have only one action item per iteration and someone is responsible to take that action to happen. Not 10 things at the same time, that then we don't have time to understand what went well and what went wrong. Only one experiment in the way the team is doing their working process, and at the end they learn, they adapt. And perhaps after 1 year, after 52 experiments, that team will become more high performant. That requires time. Especially when we are starting to see new things like product discovery. It's not easy. It's a kind of a mindset that we are trying to introduce is our teams. And with this kind of lean process, we are starting to see some results. Be a team of grown-ups. Be a grown-up nowadays means that we are accountable for our actions, means that we are delivering the things on time. So if you are having a decision-making deadlock, just scale to your manager. Don't stop to do continuous improvement. And if your process is not the best, try to figure out what it can work better with your people doing your product. Because a process works with team A doesn't mean that will work with your team. Some takeaways. About the dual track, perhaps forget the name. We are building product while doing product discovery. Think about outcomes. Think about the house and not start with the Lego parts. First, validate the problems, the usability, the value, and then do the optimization in code. It will help on the refactoring. There is no such thing as written in stone plan, so your roadmap will adapt as long as your learnings will happen. Speed in learning, instead of pixel perfect at first. Learning, well, there is no right or wrong. There is only learning. Right? We also learn with things that are wrong. And right data versus opinions. About so this was takeaways from dual discovery. About my dual discovery. Discovery is not optional anymore, but do it fast. Don't incur in a mini waterfall that you are doing the product discovery experiments for 3 months, and only then you start to write your first line of code. Being intentional in your experiments. With a time-boxed time, like in 2 weeks, we need to take a decision. So have the time box, and they should be, should there be a question to be answered? And plan everything you do for a given cadence. Interviews with your customers, mock-ups, everything you do, you ensure that you take a decision by next Friday. So you start to have this kind of mindset within the team. And that's it. Okay. Thank you. Any question?
Hello. Yeah, I have a question. You showed a slide with different proportion between discovery and building. I guess that's proportion between backlogs in the same team.
The proportion about, I'm sorry?
Proportion between discovery and building something.
Yes.
So, did I get it right that your development team is contributing to some kind of discovery?
Yes.
And how is, well, how it happens in real life?
Yeah. This was one of the biggest challenges, because dual track, it means like the product manager and the product experience, which is our role for that guy that is more responsible with the experience. They are leading the discovery while the developers are leading the delivery of product. Everything is discovery, okay? But we either do it in the fast and cheap way, either do it in the slowest and most expensive. Everyone can contribute for discovery under some governance with different responsibilities. So the product manager is responsible to try to understand what is the top problem for the team, although the developers can help if their work is managed. At the same time, the developer is responsible for the quality of the product. But if they are late to release something, the product manager can help doing tests. So it's just a single team under different responsibilities.
Thank you, Pedro. That's all?
Thank you.